Freedom of information. Many people may have heard about that, but what does it mean? Well, my friends and I have taken the pain to walk around Taylor's University and ask random people what they think freedom of information is and how important they think FOI is to them. Just check it out.
You have the rights to get to be free from anywhere, any source. Yeah.
Malaysia, not really. So, do you think that it is important, especially if they're money?
Yes, it is because there's a lot of what do you call that? The law. There's very limitation to media, so people really don't get the full information because media twists it. Like for example,
freedom of information should be applicable to everyone. Everyone has the right to everything.
People should be free to give any information they have as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
And do you think is it important for Malaysia to have this act, like the law to
Obviously within the boundaries of secrecy or not affecting other people's lives, etc.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As you have seen, many, if not all, the people we have interviewed do not have a clear picture of what freedom of information is about, although they might have a general idea of it. Well, first of all, FOI is a fundamental human right, and we might say that it is an extension of freedom of speech. It has to do with international law, and it basically gives the general public the right to access information, such as government reports. By the way, it is worth noting that the right to information has been extended to private bodies as well. Freedom of information is a prerequisite for all democracies. It promotes transparency and integrity and helps combat government mismanagement, corruption, and abuse of power, although it might be a threat to national security and conflict with the right to privacy and the right to intellectual property. Well, I have given a general definition and summary of freedom of information. Now I will let my friends elaborate on it and eventually examine the reasons, the advantages and disadvantages of a specific FOI legislation here in Selangor and everywhere else in Malaysia.
Hello, I'm Itong, and I'm going to discuss on the reasons behind the need of Freedom of Information Act. The name of the Act itself clearly shows that Freedom of Information Act is responsible to actually provide information to citizens about the government-held information. And why do we need Freedom of Information Act when we already have the Anti-Fake News Act 2018? Well, for your information, the Pakatan-led government has actually repealed the Anti-Fake News Act 2018 in August 16. And they stated that this is a badly drafted law. According to MP Nurul Izzah Anwar, she said that it will be problematic for the judge to actually define what is fake news. It is so vague that no one actually can define what is fake news. According to the United Nations, the right to have information is a fundamental human right. To support this statement, Malaysia has actually included itself in the 1999 resolution, which was endorsed by the Commonwealth heads of government, which declared that freedom of information should be guaranteed as a legal and enforceable right. Besides, Malaysia is also a signatory to the ASEAN Declaration of Human Rights, which approves all the rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, thus recognizing the freedom of information. Both of these affirms the right to information. However, Malaysia's judiciary and legislative does not uphold the right to information. More than 100 countries in the world have actually enacted the Freedom of Information laws to provide citizens with government-related information, and the government is legally obligated to provide them with the information they want. Meanwhile, in Malaysia, only 2 states have actually enacted the FOIA, which is Penang and Selangor. Despite joining the resolution and signing the ADHR, Malaysia is still hesitant to enact FOIA laws. To support this statement, the case of Haris Fatila bin Muhammad Ibrahim and Suruhan Jaya Pilihan Raya in 2017 illustrates the reluctance of the government to acknowledge such a right. The defendant petitioned to the election commissioners for information regarding the delimitation process, but election commissioners failed to provide such information. Regrettably, the Court of Appeal stated that there is no proper statutes to effectuate the right to information. The Freedom of Information Act is essential in Malaysia because it is needed to repeal the Official Secret Act 1972, also known as OSA. OSA appeared to be the biggest barrier to forbid the citizens from having access to the government's information. In the interpretation of the OSA itself, it clearly says that anything can be classified as top secret, secret, confidential, or restricted by any minister or any appointed officer. So that means everything can be a secret and it's not proper to disclose to the citizens. Basically, the Official Secrets Act keeps the people away from checking on the government and restricts the people from having access to government's information. Besides, the penalties for going against the OSA is severe. This can be well illustrated in the case of Rafizi's OSA conviction. In this case, Rafizi has actually faced 18-month sentence of jail due to the fact that he shared the 1MDB audit report without the consent of the minister. This clearly shows that the Official Secrets Act is being abused by the government and the penalty imposed are too serious. Without enough information, Malaysians will not progress to be as competitive as others. As you know, knowledge is power. And if the government restricts the citizens from getting enough information, they are actually limiting the development in its own country.
Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the benefits of enacting the Freedom of Information Act with the help of substantiated cases and relevant examples. Generally, I think we can all agree that the Freedom of Information Act, if enacted fully and implemented throughout, can bring a number of benefits to society. For example, it can encourage a possibility of review by the courts. Basically, what this means is the courts can keep a check on the actions of the government when it comes to the right of individuals and keeping information from them. The state would not be able to withhold information from its citizens secretly. This point can be illustrated in the case of Milner and the Department of Navy, where the Freedom of Information requester, Glenn Milner, tried to obtain information from the Navy Department regarding the storage of explosives around his home and his residential area. The Navy, however, denied this request, stating that under the hydro theory exemption, that would be a risk to the Navy base and community in that area. However, the Supreme Court agreed with Mr. Milner and severely limited the federal agency's ability to secretly withhold information from the public. This was a landmark decision, and even though the Freedom of Information Act still provides many loopholes for the government to withhold information from the public, it definitely shut one of them down.
Another case which illustrates the same point is that of the Islamic Shura Council and FBI, where members of the Muslim community in Southern California submitted a joint broad freedom of information request to the FBI asking for records on surveillance and monitoring of their community. The FBI, however, after much stalling and litigation, told the courts and the people that it didn't have any such records. However, turns out this was a lie. But amazingly, the FBI took the position that under the Freedom of Information Act, the FBI could mislead the courts when it considered the information as a matter of national security. The courts, however, disagreed, stating that the FBI could in no circumstances deceive the court, and backed this up with a rare decision of sanctioning the government, noting that the government could in any circumstances deceive the courts.
Okay, so another important advantage of enacting the Freedom of Information Act is that it gives the people the right to know. It will help them make the right decision as to who they elect as representatives in matter of governance. Without this, the people will be deprived of access to public information, or even worse, turn this public information into the private property of the government and its agencies, such as the Official Secrets Act. And this does not only negate the individual's right to information, but also hampers the individual's democratic rights in other ways as well. Most importantly, the enactment of the Freedom of Information Act will not only account to good PR, but will encourage widespread acknowledgement from the international community as well. And given that Malaysia incorporates this act fully and implements it throughout, this will not only encourage widespread recognition from all over the world, but will also make Malaysia stronger as a country on its own. Amirnuddin, in an article, How Public is a Public Inquiry, talks about how public inquiries should be reported by the press, as that is a fundamental feature of the rule of law in any modern democratic society. It has been recognized as a constitutional issue for centuries now, and has been incorporated into many common law systems and written constitutions as well. It is also a fundamental right that has been granted in Section 6, Subsection 1 of the European Convention of Human Rights. And that shows how important the enactment of Freedom of Information Act for Malaysia is. And also, this is the most impartial way to secure the administration of justice and win the respect of the people and their confidence. Lastly, all these points contribute in strengthening the democratic system of a country and makes them progress as an independent nation, which fully incorporates the rights of its individuals when it comes to the freedom of information. And that's the essence of a true modern democratic society.
Hi. Today, I'm going to continue my friend Saad's points about the advantages of enacting a Freedom of Information Act. There are many advantages of enacting a Freedom of Information Act. I believe my friend Saad has elaborated and explained how the Freedom of Information Act battles corruption and holds the government accountable. Firstly, my point for the advantages of enacting a Freedom of Information Act is that it improves democratic participation and understanding. Freedom of information is essential for public participation. Democracy is based on the consent of citizens, and the consent turns on the government informing citizens about their activities and recognizing their right to participate. The public is only truly able to participate in the democratic process when they have information about the activities and policies of the government. Public awareness of the reasons behind the decisions can improve support and reduce misunderstandings and dissatisfaction. Individual members of the parliament are also better able to conduct oversight. Confidence in the government is improved if it is known about the decisions will be predictable. One example is the New Zealand Commission that led to the adoption of the 1982 Official Information Act found that greater freedom of information could not be expected to end all differences of opinion. However, if applied systematically, due regard for the balance between divergent issues should hold narrow differences of opinion, and also increases the effectiveness of policies adopted and strengthen public confidence in the system. Another advantage of enacting a Freedom of Information Act is that it enables citizens to protect their other rights. Freedom of information laws can improve the enforcement of many other economic and political rights. An example is in India. The Freedom of Information laws are used to enforce rations distribution by revealing that food vendors are not providing the government subsidized food to impoverished citizens. This has resulted in substantial changes in the food distribution system to ensure that citizens are getting their food while vendors are getting adequate compensation. Another example is in Thailand. A mother whose daughter was denied entry into an elite school demanded that the school's entrance exam results. When she was turned down, she appealed to the Information Commission and the courts. In the end, she obtained information showing that the children of influential people were accepted into the school even if they got low scores. As a result, the Council of State issued an order that all schools accepted students solely on their merit. In the US, Freedom of Information Act was used to reveal instances of government-approved torture and illegal surveillances. Other laws such as Data Protection Act and some other Freedom of Information Acts allow individuals to access records held by public and private entities. A right of access and correction to personal files ensures that records on individuals are accurate and decisions are not based on out-of-date or irrelevant information. It also ensures that people can see what benefits or services they are entitled to and whether they are receiving the correct amounts. In South Africa, the private access provisions of the Promotion of Access to Information Act have been used against banks by individuals who want to know why their applications for loans are denied. Minority shareholders to obtain records of private companies, a historian who is researching how a private utility company operated during the apartheid era, and environmental groups wanting to know about possible environmental dangers of projects. In another case, the case of Resurgence India and Election Commission of India. In this case, the court said that the voter has the elementary right to know full particulars of a candidate who is to represent him in parliament, and such right to get information recognized. Thus, it is held that right to know about the candidate is a natural right flowing from the concept of democracy and is an integral part of Article 19, Subsection 1, Subsection A of the Constitution. In conclusion, we could see that the freedom of information has many advantages, and we could also see that the importance of Malaysians realizing that Malaysia doesn't have a Freedom of Information Act, and why is it important to have it.
Hi, my name is Papalavi. Today I'm going to talk about the disadvantage of having the Freedom of Information Act. The Freedom of Information Act does not only bring advantages to us, however, having the Freedom of Information Act is also disadvantage to the society. First and foremost, Freedom of Information Act can damage one's reputation. This can be clearly seen in the case NL1 and Google LLC. The claimants had been condemned of criminal offences few years ago and sued that the search result came by Google that featured links to the third-party report. The convictions were inaccurate, out of date, and of no public interest, or otherwise illegitimate interference with their rights. The claims were created under data protection law and the English civil wrong of misuse of personal data. The court rejected NT1's request, supported the actual fact that he was a name with a job, publicly live in order that the crime and its penalty couldn't be thought of a non-public nature, however, was considered a matter of public interest, specifically a business crime, its prosecution and penalty. In this decision, the court upheld NT2's claim, reasoning that crime didn't involve dishonesty. This penalty has been supported a plea of guilt, and knowledge concerning the crime and its penalty had become out of date and no ample of legitimate interest to users of Google to justify its continued convenience. On the other hand, there may be a large cost for public bodies. This is because new staffs have to be appointed to find the relevant information that the public is seeking for. Appointing new staff and paying their salary is not cheap. Not only public bodies, each and every organization need to maintain a large archive of information. It is because someone might request foreign information at any time and they need to the information available. Archiving that much of information would not cost any less, as you need proper record and storage. Thus, the Freedom of Information Act does not only contain advantages to the society, however, there are also disadvantages to the society.
Welcome back. This time I'll be talking about the countries that have legislations about the freedom of information. There are actually at least 100. Yes, you have heard it well, 100 countries with specific laws about the right of access to information. We have FY laws literally everywhere in the world, in each and every continent. In North America, the United States has the Freedom of Information Act 1966 and the Electronic Freedom of Information Act 1996, which provides access to information in electronic form. Any person or organization, whether he or she is American or not, has the right to ask for records from federal government agencies. And there is even a time limit not exceeding 20 days for these government agencies to provide the required information. Well, isn't that great? However, freedom of information was limited after the September 11 attacks on the ground of national security. And national security is a disadvantage of freedom of information, as I have mentioned earlier. Now let's talk about Canada. There also, there is the 1983 Access to Information Act, which gives Canadian citizens and people of other nationalities access to records from government institutions. In South America also, Trinidad and Tobago has the FOIA 1999, and in Colombia, Article 15 of the 1991 Constitution, which again gives people access to information from both the private and public bodies. In Europe, obviously, the UK has the Freedom of Information Act 2000, and in France, Article 14 of the 1789 Declaration of the Rights of Man gives people access to administrative documents held by public entities. In Africa, Zimbabwe has the Access to Information and Privacy Bill 2002, ironically signed by the President Mugabe. And in South Africa, Section 32, subsection 1 of the South African Constitution 1996 states, I quote, "Everyone has the right of access to any information held by the state and any information that is held by another person and that is required for the exercise or protection of any rights." The Australians benefit from the Federal Freedom of Information Act 1982, provides for access to documents held by the Commonwealth agencies which should respond within 30 days. Last but not the least, in Asia too, our neighbors, the Philippines, have the 1987 Constitution that expanded the right to information. In Thailand, people have access to information thanks to Section 48 of the Constitution, but only when government or official records may have effects on their life. Well, this shows that the right to information may not be unconditional everywhere. Whether or not it should be unconditional is a debate in itself. Japan also has the Act on Disclosure of Information by Public Agencies, enacted in 1996 and came into effect in 1998. Well, this list of countries is not exhaustive. Even in the Middle East, to be more precise, in Arab states, people have advocated for freedom of information legislation. A decree law on freedom of information was enacted in 2011 in Tunisia, and the circular regulating its implementation was published on 3 May 2012 on the occasion of World Press Freedom Day. In turn, Yemen passed an FOI law in July 2012, receiving high praise from international experts. Although FOI has not been as successful as in other parts of the world, there is still much hope. Finally, FOI laws being implemented, even in developing countries, we wouldn't think there would be such laws. Recently, as written in the International Journal of Bahamian Studies, Volume 23, the FOIA 1994 was enacted in the Caribbean, and there were further developments of FOI influenced by civil society and local and international associations and organizations. Laws governing access to information have more or less been successfully implemented in the Caribbean as opposed to the Bahamas, where the 2017 Act was not fully implemented due to unnecessary delays and lack of training and public awareness. Well, we hope that Malaysia will also have freedom of information at federal level. People have been trying to advocate, if not fight, for freedom of information in Malaysia, but they were not successful. For example, in the 2015 case involving the activist Haris Ibrahim against the Elections Commission for a declaration that voters had the right to all information relating to changes made in parliamentary and state constituencies. However, it is crystal clear that there is still much hope for freedom of information. not only in Malaysia but everywhere in the world, because as my friends and I have mentioned, it is a prerequisite for transparency and democracy. That is why international bodies such as the United Nations, the Commonwealth, the Council of Europe, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, among others, are trying their utmost best to encourage all the existing countries to adopt laws in relation to freedom of information. I will end by saying that no good government should fear freedom of information. As the Malaysian lawyer Johan rightly says in an article in the Star online newspaper, I quote, "A government that has nothing to hide should not be afraid of scrutiny by the public." Well, our video presentation ends here, unfortunately. We hope that after viewing this video, you'll have a better understanding of the freedom, of your freedom to have access to information. On behalf of all my teammates, I thank you all for watching.